do you remember specifically UWF's merger with WCW? Or really, it was Jim Crockett Promotions at that time still. When was the first time you heard that UWF was going to get swallowed up, and when did you realise that this co-promotion thing was not going to work?
Almost immediately on that part. Eddie Gilbert was, of course, still there, and he was technically the assistant booker for UWF. Bill Watts was the booker, but at that time, Bill was off circling the country trying to grow. He was trying to compete with WWF at that time. So Eddie was pretty much in charge, and we were in New Orleans. And we had all gotten phone calls earlier that day that Eddie wanted to meet with the locker rooms at the Holiday Inn Hotel down by the New Orleans airport. And in typical fashion of the business then, there were two meetings, a heel meeting and a babyface meeting. And we got there, and Eddie told us what was going to happen that night at UNO, University of New Orleans. And he said that he had talked to Lawler, and that Lawler was willing to take the entire UWF locker room, and we were all going to go to Memphis and keep the group together, keep the band together. And he did say that Steiner and Sting, and I believe there was a third, that had been offered substantial contracts from the NWA, and so they wouldn't be going. And so, we had the two meetings that night. We get to the building. As you can imagine, that afternoon, there's a lot of animosity building, a lot of anger in the guys. We get to the building that night. We all go into the locker room, and Eddie said, okay, I'm going to go get Dusty. So he leaves and comes back several minutes later with Dusty. And, I got to hand it to Dusty because his political skills were exemplary. He opened the door and took one step in and looked around. And when Eddie, can I talk to you for a second? Pulls him back out. He knew as soon as he walked in what was going on. And they were out for, I don't know, a long time, half hour, 45 minutes. And Eddie came back in and said, okay, we're all going to work tonight. And, we all looked around this restaurant like, what the hell's going on, right? Then the lineup gets put up. And it's me and Ron Simmons versus Flair and Luger. And Steve Cox versus one of their top guys. It was clear the UWF was going to get massacred this night. And, I went to Eddie and talked to him. I was more than willing to just leave and go home. I was loyal to Eddie. I was loyal to the UWF, and because I gave him my break. And Eddie laid it out for me. He said, no, and it was good advice from him. Said just do what they're asking us to do, and be a professional. And we did. Go out and have the matches. You can almost sense the feeling in the building. When you've been around in the business for a while, you can start to get a sense of where the audience's sentiment lies. And about halfway through the card, you can start to get the feel that the fans in the UNO building were not liking what they were getting. And I remember that night, a lot of the old timers, Black Bart and a lot of those guys were saying, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to last, meaning the NWA is not going to make it here. And I think they lasted for 3 months, and the TV contracts, it really was a great move for Bill Watts to make money. It was a really bad move for the Crockett's, because what essentially happened was for $8.4 million, I think it was, they bought 2 or 3 ring trucks, a couple rings, and that was it, because the TV contracts were all specific to those TV networks. And so these networks all have a right to say, hey, your ratings suck, we're getting rid of you. And within 2 or 3 months, that's what had happened. So
who was the sort of architect of making sure that the UWF guys did not get over in any way? Was it Dusty who just wanted to kill it off, or was it somebody else?
No, it would have been Dusty. And I remember earlier that day, I'd forgotten to mention this. As we were walking in, we walked in as a group, of course. And Eddie, there was one of the doors for Eddie, Eddie Gilbert Booker, the sign on the door. And as we were walking in, somebody walked up and ripped that off and put Dusty Rhodes Booker up on the thing. And, again, we're like a gang war, right? We're all ready to go to war over this. And, Eddie stopped and stared at that. And that's why he ended up walking down into the locker room with us. It was a very tense night. but it did open the door to a lot of us, right? You know, Ron Simmons ended up getting to move up, and later I would get to move up to the NWA, and that would become the pathway to the WWF then for guys like Ron.